Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Lawrence Connolly. We're talking about Angie's first cup final appearance. We have managed to overcome St Johnstone. At the beginning of the game, we were looking back, Lawrence, before our time, of course, 1969 League Cup final. It's memorable because Bertie Auld scored the winning goal. And during the only goal of that game, and during the last week, with all the memories of Bertie coming in, we were making reference to that final time and time again because of today's opponents. And we won 1-0 again today, and number 10 scored. It doesn't matter that the 10 was only on these shorts. Number 10 scored that goal. Now, we've got Kevin McCluskey coming in to join us on the panel. Kevin is coming in from Hungary, and it's always a pleasure to get his view. There he is. Kevin, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself, gents?
Brilliant. Yes, you visited us fairly recently for the first time in a State of Mind studio. You came in whilst you were over in Scotland for a few days, so that was brilliant to see you. And you took a wee bit of ACSOM memorabilia away with you as well. It was great to see you wearing that at the Ferencváros game.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Got the old Shamrock top that's behind you over your shoulder there. Wasn't brave enough to wear it uncovered inside the stadium right enough, but yes. Good to get it out on show over in Budapest.
I seen a wee sneaky selfie that you took that night. I was just saying to Lawrence there, we were looking back to the 69 Cup final. It was 1-0 and Bertie Auld scored. Today was all about Bertie. On the 67th minute, before we get into the game and the actual talking points, in the 67th minute, there was quite the display. And I'm going to ask you the question because I wondered this at the time. The game had kind of gone a bit stale by that point, and it almost sparked a wee bit of life. Am I just being an over romantic there, Lawrence? Because I thought it sparked a wee bit of life into Celtic at that point.
No, definitely, 100% agree with you. It's a great display. A lot of effort put in by the boys, and great tribute to pay to a man that was a life and soul of Celtic. You've said it, it was a number 10 that scored. The numbers look better than the shots anyway, don't they?
Oh, they do. They do.
That, you know what I mean? But, yeah, it definitely lifted the players, and, that's why the fans are here, to try and lift the players and drive them on. We're into a cup final. St Johnstone defended resolutely. They put their bodies on the line. There's a couple of times,
moments.
You're thinking we should have had another goal there, but St Johnstone, credit to them, they absolutely stuck to the task. But 1-0, it's a cup final, it's Angie's first.
It is. There's a few things I want to talk about. First and foremost, what you said there with regards to the energy that was created by that display. And I think that we've got to give credit to those who were involved in organising the display. It was absolutely tremendous to see. That energy was missing all last season, wasn't it, Kevin? And we've banged on about this time and time again about the lack of fans. But I'll tell you something, it's all coming together again. And I remember, here's the Brendan Rodgers klaxon coming in, but I remember Brendan Rodgers talking about the Holy Trinity. I think we've got the gaffer and the players, and I think we've got the fans. I'm not so sure about everybody upstairs, but we'll not talk about them today. But there was a real coming together there in the 67th minute. Did you get that feeling?
I definitely did, aye. I was making some notes during the game, as I try to do, so I don't make so much of a fool of myself in these things. And my notes in the second half are basically loads of possession but doing nothing, 65 minutes. And then on 67 minutes, it's the display. And that was kind of just an amazing display. You could really sense that kind of the crowd was lifted, and then the players were lifted because of it. I think it made a massive difference, because I have a few more notes after that of us actually create chances. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's something that's been touched on before in relation to last season. I think it's probably John has mentioned it more than anyone, that we missed the fans a lot last season, and we can't underestimate kind of that lift that we can give the players in the park when we're there. It's not to make any excuses for last year, but you can really see that when we raise it an octave in the stands, it kind of hammers home to the players that they are fighting for something here. That there is something they've got to go for, and I think it raised the game today.
Oh, without a doubt. And there's loads to look at in terms of the angles that you can use. There's loads of points that I want to go through in the game. There's quite a few positives, Lawrence. Before we get into that, I think back to the 1997-98 season, where, some people say we won the one. It was a smell the glove season. Some people say we stopped the 10. Wim Jansen came in and he had a rocky start, didn't he? And I think Ange had a rocky start, and a few people were making parallels to that. But that particular season, one thing that I always look back on was, and I'm going to call it by its correct name, the Coca-Cola Cup win when we beat Dundee United. There was a galvanising effect on the team, I felt, because that was it. We were off. We knew how to win as a team, and we went on to win the league after that. How important is it to go into this first cup final, Lawrence? And actually, how important is it to the rest of the season to get this cup under the belt?
I think it's huge. I don't think you can underestimate it. I mean, I've got great memories of that, although it was at Ibrox, Dundee United 3-0. I think, if I remember right, our chaos with the Celtic team afterwards, and Craig Burley dropping me home in a taxi was, cup final I remember for many reasons. But, look, the team's starting to form together. We can see them improving. It wasn't the best performance by them today, but we're fairly threadbare as a squad. Jota, I thought, was outstanding. Beaton, he's improving in midfield game and game. Great to see James come on. And, who knew he'd come on in 65 minutes or so and change the game for us and get a goal. I think the team would take great heart from it. It puts one in the trophy cabinet. Let's get the two others. So I think that's what we'll be saying. Ange will be going, right, if he's come on this, we can kick on. We're all expecting us to strengthen in January, but that could just give us a lift to get us to January, without dropping any more points, if we take that.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Kevin? Because obviously it's hard, and we never took it for granted when we won 4 trebles in a row. It's so difficult, just domestically, to have that dominance. But what I'm looking for is that momentum, and I'm looking for that momentum within the new team, that Ange is assembling here. In isolation, I want to win the cup. I want to win every trophy Celtic enter. But I'm looking upon it as the bigger picture. The bread and butter is the league. But winning that trophy and getting that momentum and that confidence, there's a lot of players in that side who haven't won trophies. That we looked at the defence the other week and how young the defence was. And, Jota, for example, up on the left wing, Abada on the right wing. Young players haven't won loads and loads of domestic trophies. How important do you think that will be for us? And, how much priority is on that victory in the final now?
I think it's massively important for us. At the start of every season, I think, as you say, you want to go out and win every trophy. And this is Ange's first trophy with us. If he can win that, that's him put a marker down straight away that he's a successful manager here. It kind of silences a lot of his critics that he's got that say he can't do it in Europe or in a European league, European league. So I think if we can win this trophy, it could be such a big boost to us. I also think, looking at the team, and as you say, there's a lot of experience in there now. A lot of boys that went there through the quadruple treble. So it would be such a massive confidence boost for them. We don't actually know yet how fragile they might be if they lost this game. So what the negative consequences could have been. But I think in getting that win, it galvanizes them. They're in a final. So we can only kick on from here. And let's hope that we do.
I was keeping an eye on the conversations that were ongoing on the Twitter streams and on the Twitter feeds. A lot of people were harking back to the Livingston game. We spoke about it at half-time, Lawrence. But what I'm going to take away from that is we have learned something. I'm not going to compare it like for like, but there was a very resolute defence in front of us tonight. And I think that tonight, the difference tonight was St Johnstone looked far more dangerous going forward than Livingston did at Celtic Park. I've got to say that. We did ourselves no favours, but that is a talking point for later on in the show. But it looks as though we are developing, Lawrence. We are learning, because we came up against a similar scenario today, but we overcame that scenario. And a big part of that was the man you were you were saying at halftime had to come on, and that was James Forrest. Some tremendous feedback coming through for Forrest, and I want to bring some of that up before I throw it over to you. So we've got Donny Boy 67, who comes in on a regular basis on a Celtic State of Mind streams. I've gave Forrest a hard time before, but I do rate him. I just think he doesn't show it enough. He was the man that made all the difference. He was a game changer today, and Paddy reckons that he needs to start from now on. But I think what we need to take account of, and this is what Jock Sporran is pointing out, Abada has done well, but he is young. He should be at a backup to Forrest. When you see today, Forrest definitely is an impact sub when you need to call on him, Lawrence. But should he now start in the right mid slot with Abada kind of learning from him and developing as his kind of secondary right-hand side player? Because when I look at Abada and the age of him, and you look at the experience of Forrest, and you think to yourself, that boy could actually learn a lot from James Forrest. And, I think Forrest needs a run of games. It was a stop-start season last year. You don't want the same thing to happen this season.
Yeah, listen, it depends how fit Jamesy is. Is he fit enough to start? Abada's put in a shift. He didn't really show much, but he was making space for that. Ralston to go up the line. He was cutting in and creating that space. So for me, the better player's James Forrest. If he's fit enough to start, he should start in front of Abada. But Abada has, what's he? You see, 19. He's a great start.
Just turned 20, yeah.
Just turned 20. Yeah, he's an absolute great start to his Celtic career. And it looks like he'll have a great career in front of him. But yeah, James has been over the course before, hasn't it? And sometimes I think it helps to have that experience on the park. We've got a fairly tough run up until the transfer window, and I'd rather see James in there kind of using his knowledge. And I know at times he blows hot and cold, but he just seems to have a knack of scoring goals when we need them. The number of assists and number of goals he's got for Celtic already is phenomenal.
We were talking about George Conley earlier on, Lawrence, your namesake, although spelt differently. And he was telling you that, Celtic, the team, the changing room, beyond Johnstone, had three managers, three captains, if you like, in Bertie Auld, Bobby Murdoch and Billy McNeill. And I look through the history of Celtic, and I look through this procession of players that comes through the system, and they know by the age of 27, 28, 30 even, they know the club inside out. And I think a club like Celtic requires that all the time, and Forrest is one of those experienced pros in the dressing room. I think they always require it, but none more so in a season like this season, Kevin, where you're bringing in so many players. I mean, we've brought in 12 new players already. We're moving into a January transfer window where some people are suggesting we need to bring in another 6. If that was the case, we could be up at 18 new bodies. So the importance of having that group of players, like McGregor and like Forrest. And by the way, I'm going to have to throw in Rogic and Beaton again, because they've been at the club for coming on to 9 years. Players that have been there for a long time and know the club inside out. That importance that Forrest brings isn't just on the park, is it?
No, it's not. And I don't think you can underestimate the role of having somebody like him and McGregor around the team, guys that have come through the system, through the youth system, know the place inside out. The guys that are there that the senior citizens now amongst the squad who are there to guide the young boys and new players in and make them aware of what it actually means to play for Celtic. Yeah, it's something that you can't buy.
I remember, you'll remember a player called Willie Garner, Lawrence, who came to Celtic. He was a big Celtic fan, and he'd found success at Aberdeen under Alex Ferguson. Celtic signed him, and it meant a lot to him and his family, because they're a big Celtic supporting family from Falkirk / Denny out that neck of the woods. Your neck of the woods, Kevin, I think. You're a Central Scotland boy, are you not? And
that's right,
it turned into a bit of a nightmare for him, because he scored 2 own goals on his home debut against St Mirren, and it didn't get much better for him. There's a lovely big guy, Willie, but he was telling us that when new players came in to the Celtic side, often new signings, you had a group of players, and one of them that he mentioned was Tommy Burns, who would make a point, simple things, by the way, make a point of sitting next to them on the bus to away games and all that kind of stuff, and just explain to them the history and the heritage and the traditions of Celtic Football Club. Now, again, I am a traditionalist when it comes to Celtic, Lawrence, but that kind of influence from the likes of James Forrest, Callum McGregor, especially in this time of a huge turnaround in staff, I don't think you can underestimate that. So you can't underestimate the importance of James Forrest, both as a player and as an influence off the park.
Yeah, James is huge. Listen, it all feeds into Angie's vision, doesn't it? You know, we've got a history of being playing attacking, entertaining football, which, you know, there's great synergy with Angie's philosophy. So if we can get that over to the players that are just in and how much it means to us as fans, if they go out and entertain us, great. You know, you've got James there. Listen, you've got Callum that been near Beaton's been a while, Tony Ralston. You've got McCarthy who's steeped in Celtic. So, you know, we're getting a core of players there that can tell them what it means to the fans. And I think it definitely helps having the fans back at the stadium. We touched on it at 67, that display, they show, you know, what the heroes mean to us. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it had a great influence in the game. I thought, you know, it really did spark the energy, and doesn't it?
Oh, it did. It did.
You know, Jamesy Forrest, great to have him back. You know, he's just a great option. We'll talk about how threadbare we are. At least we're starting to got options, you know. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, because, I mean, the big argument about Ralston's performances, a lot of people took a long time to be able to admit that actually this guy is a first-team player. He is a decent player. He's better than decent. He's an international quality player now. So what you've now got is you've gone from having virtually no options at right back to having two options at right back once the left backs come back into play. You're looking at that kind of number 6 position, and you've got a couple of options in there. I never thought I'd be talking in those terms when referring to Near Beaton. But, you know, if you get a first pick at number 6, and by the way, I thought he looked like a first pick in the first half, and Beaton's your backup, you're going to be confident with that. On the right-hand side, Lawrence, you're looking at Abadan for it. That's two tremendous options you've got on the right-hand side, and I think that we are building up to that point. My biggest concern always is you just get one injury. You're one injury away from really being threadbare, and that's what we saw with Giakoumakis. Now, there's a good point coming through, and we'll get it out the road just now because it's the biggest kind of criticism, I think, of today's game. Patrick James Simpson, win is a win, but heart in the mouth more than once with the back passes. I've been calling it heart and mouth moments. There was 3 of them, as far as I'm aware. The 96th minute was the big one for me, where you're just thinking, please don't do that. But we also saw one in the 18th minute when O'Halloran charged Hart and almost got the better of him. He was he thought he had much more time than he did have. And on the 79th minute, McCarthy, fresh in the action, he plays a slack pass, doesn't he? So there was 3 moments where we're kind of, we're playing the ball around our own box a wee bit too much. It's still a concern, Kevin. How big is it a concern for you?
I think it's quite a big concern, to be honest. Watching that game, I thought for the majority of it we were in control. Loads of possession, always in the front foot, even kind of going forward to make things happen. Jota was a constant hit in the left-hand side, but there was always that kind of nagging doubt that St Johnstone were defending quite solidly, weren't giving us many clear openings, and on the break they looked dangerous. So I think we then became our own worst enemy when we started to build from deep. There was those slack passes, and yeah, I mean, if St Johnstone had been able to capitalise from one of them and taking the lead, that changes the complexion of the game completely. And then I'm looking at it thinking, well, now we need 2 goals, and we're struggling enough to get the first one. So where does it come from? So, I mean, certainly the first one with the O'Halloran, that wasn't too far away from going in. So we've dodged a bullet there. The one at the very end, that was, don't know what would make of that if it had gone. But
I mean, that just knocks the stuffing out you, Kevin. If that happens in the 96th minute, it's knocking the stuffing out you. St Johnstone going to extra time feeling enthused.
Exactly, they've got the tail after that, and then anything can happen. So, yeah, it's definitely something we need to be working on. And I'm one for kind of trying to play from the back and play good football, but there's a time and a place for it. In the 96th minute, and that at the moment, you put it in the stand, you just get rid of it. If you know, the only other option is a back pass to the keeper.
The big thing I noticed is with Tony Ralston is when he gets the ball in that position where we're playing it around the back, his body position's so much better. The issue with McCarthy, and I'll get on to McCarthy in a moment, his body position was poor because he didn't know what was over his right shoulder, and that's exactly where he's playing the ball into that area. Ralston always opens his body up, and sometimes he just clears it. And I've noticed that with Cameron Carter-Vickers. Sometimes he is just clearing it, but what he tends to do is clear it into one of the channels behind Abada and Jota. But it is still a concern for myself, Lawrence. I'm being pernickety perhaps, but it was brought up in the comment section. I'm enjoying the victory, but in the 96th minute, you know, if they get a goal at that point, Lawrence, it's panic stations.
No, definitely. But, you know, this is Andy's style of football, isn't it? It's the way he wants us to learn how to play. You know, we've won 1-0. Yeah, it wasn't the best game, but hopefully they've learned a bit. And there is times just to clear it. And a touch on Tony Ralston, there's times also where he's got that wee move where he just almost spins around, loses his player, and he's off up the line. You know, he's doing that quite often in games. Listen, but McCarthy maybe was caught cold. He's just on, isn't he? He's not played a lot of football. But it's a mistake. Yeah, his body position wasn't great. But, you know, a 1-0 win. We're in the final. You know, we've got a lot to be happy about. Beaton, you know, another solid performance. Mm-hmm. Especially looking at that early yellow. I mean, the ref seemed to give that out and then waited until the last 5 or 10 minutes and then just started dishing them out to everybody and anybody.
Like absolutely. I've got a few issues. I know. I mean, I've got a few issues with his performance, Lawrence.
Well, the St Johnstone guys must be going, what's the yellow for this time?
Yep.
He just didn't go, I'm not giving a lot, I'll just start giving them out just in the last 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It was strange. And the one Kyogo got booked for, you're like, well, Bryson's come in and kind of stood over the top of him and that. There's not much in it. You're going, he's the wee push at him. If that's a yellow, well, is it any worse than the pushing and Jota in the box in the first half? You know, there was nothing in it. Why is he yellow carded both? Who knows? So it wasn't the best today, but you know, he's not got a great rep for his standard of ref. But he's just seemed to lose it in the last 10 minutes and decide to card everybody.
He did. The Kyogo one I found interesting because it seems to be okay for James Brown to scream twice right into Jota's face, you know, aggressively screaming. That's all right, you know, you just let that one go, and then Kyogo gets booked for basically getting hammered, and then Rooney, you know, that challenge. And I don't think Rooney's a particularly dirty player, but that challenge on Welsh with it, you know, he led with the elbow. For me, that's a red card all day long. All day long, that's a red card. And then, you know, in the same minute or two, Turnbull got booked, so he's getting punished the same way that Rooney got booked for tugging somebody's shirt. I mean, the inconsistencies, Lawrence, is frustrating as hell. But you've mentioned McCarthy, and outdoor starter comes in. McCarthy looks classy. And Mick also says he's a player, he will come good. I started off my comments on McCarthy, pulling him up for that bad pass back. And that's fair enough, it was an error. But that's not what I've got written here, because I thought that McCarthy, for all the time he was on the park, he gave us something completely different. I mean, Beaton tends to get the ball in the midfield area and tries to kind of dribble out. He'd done it pretty well today, dribble out, out of defence and transition it that way. What I've noticed with McCarthy is it's the first time pass. And he'd done it one time and he'd done it brilliantly. It was an incisive pass in the 82nd minute where we were actually under pressure. But before you know it, he's passed the ball out to Callum McGregor, who then helps it on again to Jota. And we're on the attack. And I think he gives you something a wee bit different. And I know it was only a cameo appearance from him, including the injury time. I think he got about 18 minutes there. But for me, and I've said it a couple of times, Kevin, I do think McCarthy's, if we can get him fit, and I know that's a caveat all the time with McCarthy, if we can get him fit, I think he's your first pick with Beaton as a backup.
Well, for me, he's still out in McCarthy, even after today. I thought Beaton was far better in that sort of defensive midfield role than McCarthy came on. I'm not sure what it is with him yet. I don't know if I'm expecting too much from James because he's come up from the Premiership and he's a very experienced player, but he's still looks off the pace to me. And the kind of the incident with the back pass at the end kind of highlights that he's still not quite there. Granted, there were moments when he can just play that little pass, and he's quicker at transitioning the play, I think, than Beaton. So probably over time, if he gets more games under his belt, more minutes, gets up to speed with things, I think he's going to be a good player for us. But right now, I'm not totally convinced that he should be a starter.
He's a player that I've noticed in the comments section that it does divide. People are on the fence that it divides opinion. So to bring some of the comments in, Michael Quinn says McCarthy might come good. I'm of the same view, Michael. I think there is a right good chance that he will. Rory, McCarthy was decent at Crystal Palace. He could come good after settling in. I think it is all down to that match fitness. And Red Scotland, welcome to the show. McCarthy more than held his own in the EPL. There is clearly a player in there. The single solitary issue is his fitness level. And Egyptian King echoes that by saying that the injuries have rattled him. I think we look at McCarthy sometimes, Lawrence, as a 35-year-old. We've added 5 years onto the player's career. He's only 30. And that's because of the injury problems that he's had, I guess. What's your view on him? Kevin's not sure at the moment. I've still got a wee bit of an inkling that he's going to do well for us. What's your view?
Well, Kevin, although he's not sure, he did touch on something that's going to be really important for us to be successful, is the speed that we can transition at. Mm-hmm. And he's the best at it, I think, for our number 6, and it allows us to play calm further forward. So I think it's fitness just now. Can we get 90 minutes out of him? Can we get 45 minutes out of him? It's fitness. And I suppose Kev's entitled to say, look, the jury's out on him, because I don't know if he can play any more than 20 minutes for us just now. So,
yeah.
We need somebody that's going to give us 90 minutes 2 or 3 times a week. I think he can get there. He sees a pass. I think he doesn't allow us to be bullied in midfield, which some of our midfielders do. They're not that kind of, don't have that strength. And I think Bryson was doing it to his, until he went off. He was kind of bullying the midfield a bit. So I think he gives us a couple of things that we don't have. Key thing Kevin's touched on is the speed he can transition at. Another thing is I don't think it allows us to be bullied in midfield as much as perhaps other players do. But, time's going to tell. He's been here a while, and I know Anne just said, look, he doesn't like making excuses, but he's suffering for not having a pre-season. Mm-hmm. We're some way into the season now. We'd hope he'd be up to speed the next few weeks, because, if not then, when?
This is the thing. The nights are fair drawn in, as they say, Lawrence. So you would expect McCarthy to be in and about the starting lineup. There was also a really good bit of play, 92nd minute, very important defensive bit of play by McCarthy, where he's basically stepped in and shored up the defence, which I thought, was excellent. Yeah, the only blot in his copybook was the poor pass, but it was just on the park. Callum McGregor at half-time, Lawrence, you were kind of pushing for him to go up further up the park. I thought he did in the second half. I seen a lot more of Callum McGregor in the final third. Yeah,
he was kind of 10, 15 yards further forward, wasn't he? I mean, I was suggesting getting Turnbull off earlier, because I still think he didn't give us enough this game, Turnbull, but it shows how kind of stretched we are. Listen, he might have made that change, but if it hadn't been for, unfortunately, Stephen Welsh having to go off, I think that probably had an effect on what changes he made. But yeah, I think Callum's better the further forward we can get. St Johnstone weren't really coming out to attack us, so I think probably Anne just said, well, look, you'd suggested maybe going 3 at the back or not doing that. I suppose it's just the different changes on it, saying, look, Callum, push up just a wee bit further forward, get that 10 yards further forward, so as when you get the ball, move it quicker. But yeah, definitely played further forward. Turnbull, should have burst the net, and for me, it was another poor game from him in a big game. And it's the big games we need him to do stuff. But he's young, he's 22, we're asking him to do a lot. With many options that we have other than moving Callum in that position now. We don't have a lot.
The big thing with Turnbull, we've been speaking about him all season, really, Kevin. And there was a lineup just the other week where we only had 3 players in the starting lineup who had played 50 or more games for Celtic. One of them was Near Beaton, one of them was Callum McGregor, and the other was indeed David Turnbull. I think he's playing as much football now as he ever has done in his career. And because of the lack of depth, we just can't rotate at that point. I mean, at this moment in time, if you wanted to rest them, it would be Rogic that you would put in, but Rogic's injured. So again, I think this highlights how important January is for Celtic. I'm going to ask you the question, Colin, what reckons we need half a dozen players? I think we're going to lose a few. I think we'll lose 3 or 4 that you would class as first teamers. You know, Barkas, Ayeti, Soro, and Bolingoli are the 4. And people are thinking maybe we're their fringe players anyway, but they are first team players who, you know, given a few injuries, maybe so the day Ayeti comes on. So I reckon we will lose 3 or 4 first teamers. How many do you think we're going to bring in?
That for me depends on how many we lose. If it's me, I can see the arguments that we probably do need 5-6 players to boost the squad and give us that sort of 2 players for every position. That's the ideal that you want. But given that we signed, 12 or 14 players in the summer to then go and do like another kind of mass recruitment in January, you can see that it's possibly not the best thing to do, to integrate so many players again into the squad. But on the other hand, as you say, if we lose Barkas, we need to replace him with a second choice keeper. So we need to do a like-for-like replacement in that case, whilst also looking to add, for me, 2 or 3 key players. So it all depends on how many move out, how many we bring in.
Yeah, I think you would agree with that. I mean, again, with Bolingoli, you don't really regard him as a first teamer because he's only played 2 games, but you lose him, then you lose an option at left back. So you've got to bring in another left back. So absolutely. Now, for anyone who didn't tune in at half-time lunch, we can't go through the full-time reaction bulletin without talking about Jota. He was a man of the match tonight. He was absolutely astonishing down the left-hand side. He's got a bag of tricks. I think a lot of these criticisms that he's getting is that he's going down too easily. I don't see that. I think he goes down when he's impeded. He's maybe calling for it on his way down, as he did in the first half. But I just think that he is an absolute game changer. The impact he's made has been astonishing, and he's a fan's favourite, Lawrence.
Yeah, listen, he's getting better with game. He seems to be buying in it. He's loving the celebrations at the end. And you know, for going down easy, I mean, that Tim Brown, you know, he's got his hand on his shoulder, he's pulling him back. He's not allowed to do that. You know, if Jota goes down, he gives the refs a decision to make, doesn't it? The other one in the first half, where the boy pushes him, it's a clear push. You know, is it enough to push him over? I don't know, but I think he's pushing him to put Jota off balance so he can't control the ball. So, you know, he gets what he wants from the push. Well, you're not really allowed to do that, are you? So he's not the biggest guy either, is he? You know, there doesn't seem a lot to him, so maybe it doesn't take as much to push him over. But yeah, the boy's a footballer, isn't he? Some of the balls he was putting across, he had no business being able to put them across it, did he? We just needed maybe a wee bit more in the box. And I think Abada was a bit off about, you know, you're needing your other winger to come in and make up a second striker then, aren't you? Perhaps even a wee bit of luck in the box. You know, there was a few times it was kind of a wee bit of pinball in their box, but it's always seemed to fall to St Johnstone player.
Yeah.
Cleared. You know, you were like, yep. And maybe your number 10, yeah, the midfield's still not working, and we've touched on it. Turnbull was missing. It's if you had someone else there pushing forward, they've given Jota options. It might benefit him there. So, listen, how many's going to come in January? Yeah, largely will depend how many go out. You know, we've got wages, etc. But I think we know we're 3 short anyway. So I would expect to see at least 3 come in, even if nobody goes out. And then from there, it's, you know, if we can get rid of Ayeti, Barkas, Bolly, they're all big earners in terms of Celtic just now, you know, and would bring in some money. And is Bain good enough for backup keeper? The reports we're seeing in Toby and what he's doing for the Colts, but perhaps he's worth looking at. Well, he's England under 21, isn't he? He's going to be a decent keeper. So I'd like to see a few come in. Obviously, they've been linked with a boy in Japan, Maeda, quite heavily. Central or defensive midfielder from Brazil seems to have started following Celtic on his Instagram, whatever Instagram is. So, so hopefully, you know, those could be 2 of them coming in. But we're still like in striker options, you know. Yakima, his jury for me is very much out on him. you know. And I know it's another guy that didn't have a pre-season, etc. But it's been so stop-start for him. And I think we can all just to say, like, yeah, he's £5 million. It's definitely not worked. If we could get $1 million back for him and get him off the wage bill, I'd grab that just now.
You've got to. It was all about Bertie all today. Superb tribute to Bertie by not only wearing the number 10 shorts, but on the 67th minute. That display was fantastic. I think it breathed new life into the Celtic side. And we went on to win 1-0, just as we did in the 1969 League Cup final against St Johnstone. Who scored the winner that day? None other than Bertie Auld. So thank you all for getting involved. We had about 1,000 of you live on the stream across Facebook and LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch and Twitter. Thank you all very much for that. We appreciate your ongoing support on A Celtic State of Mind. If you haven't done already, go onto the YouTube channel and get subscribed, and it's free, and we produce content every single day. The charity weekender is coming up on the 4th and 5th of December. So I'm looking forward to that as well, raising loads of cash for needy causes. All that's left for me to say is Lawrence Connolly, Kevin McCluskey, all the way from Hungary. Thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.